Welcome to the channel, viewers. Reverend Dr. J.W. Morrison, Theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Thank you for joining me and for being here. I want to talk about what happens after a relationship, the stages and steps you should take to make a quick recovery, or the quickest recovery that you can, after the rumination, the processing, the post-mortem, results, and then the burial, and the resurrection. The burial usually is where we finally grieve the relationship, and then we resurrect, hopefully to a new life, prayerfully and without any more resentments or bitternesses or grief left. Problem is, sometimes when we break up, there's a lot of resentment, depending on whether you're the dumper or the dumpee, and a lot of confusion, particularly if you break up with somebody and it's not to take off with somebody else. It's just for a legitimate reason that you just could not take anymore. And it's an opportunity for everyone to grow, to stop and to think about what's actually happened, why it's happened. Was it important to me, what I just lost? Or was it just at the stage where it didn't matter at all? I never in my life have taken love as a joke or a relationship as a joke. I've always tried to resolve things as I've gone along. It hasn't always worked out that way for me. And a lot of people have been hurt along the way, I suppose, including myself. I've seen a lot of stuff and a lot of strange reasons why people break up. Some of the silliest reasons have brought some of the most destructive things, but I've had people just leave for the sake of it. I've had people just ruin things through the wrong advice. I've been cursed. I've been left for dead. They've tried to put me in mental home. There's so many different things that can happen to you, and you meet people after these things and they think, they know all about your life. They haven't got a clue how you've tried to work through things, and you've built houses and had children, and these people haven't even left home, half of them, and they think they know life more better than what you do. It's a hard life being a bricklayer or a minister or both at the same time, building churches, building houses, and you just go through life and you see the attitudes and the mindsets of people, and you just keep progressing yourself. You don't judge, and you try not to judge, and life happens. But what happens is sometimes people don't want people to do better in life. I don't think I've ever split up with anybody hoping that life wouldn't be better for them, or wishing them whatever's going to happen to them. I know usually I only break up if somebody's driven me to the point where, enough's enough. I don't live by this, let loyalty and faithfulness blind you. And a lot of these women have had partners that have cried over them and sulked over them and wished them to come back, and done all sorts of silly things to not get the message across as to why the breakups happened or what the reason behind it is. And as you get older and you start to get sick and your mind starts to get tired, there's two things that can happen at a breakup. After everybody's tried to resolve things and things have ended up as they are, there's two things that can happen. The first thing is you can go downhill. You can turn to the booze, the drugs, promiscuity, and all the things that are going to continue on to bring you harm and get you to the grave quicker. These types of things. grudges, bitternesses, unresolved. Unresolved's a big killer. It does a lot of damage to the mind and the body and all its organs and things, because resentment and bitterness turns one bitter and cold and hard. Although we look like we're doing things, charitable things on the outside, a lot of people that do charity aren't doing too good on the inside, because they're trying to make an outward impression of themselves that's just not equal with their internal way in which they are. You'll find a lot of people that are quiet have a lot of residual resentment and bitterness, and they're like a time bomb, but they just don't know how to, with a wick that won't light. And this just brings sicknesses, illnesses, and all sorts of other stuff. I think the best thing to do after a blow-up and a breakup, whatever the reasons are, number one, you better make sure it's not because you're going to be with somebody else. That's just not healthy for anyone, and it's only going to bring a curse on you relative to what karma can do and the universe through karma. There's an old saying, which I'd never heard before till not long ago: karma knows your address. I don't want karma coming to my place for the wrong reasons. So the first thing you've got to do is make sure that your breakup is for your health, not for betrayal, not for convenience, not for things that are going to degrade the person that you're leaving. Number two, once the breakup's happened and you're sad and you've had enough, and whatever the case might be, you're disappointed, you're let down, you're just wondering why things didn't go the way that we would have liked, and that, be it for alcohol, drugs, whatever, just people abusing themselves when they shouldn't, all this kind of thing. When thought things were getting better, and well, the first thing you got to do is stop and, I believe, process in a way in which you're looking at yourself. You're looking at the way you behaved in the relationship, possibly where you went wrong, probably where you went wrong, where you could have done better. What were the reasons behind it? Were they legit? What could have been different? Why did it happen? How did it happen? All the processing that takes place, because you're going to ruminate. Your mind's going to ruminate, so you may as well ruminate for the right reasons. And that is trying to do a reconstruction, as it were, without being too hard on yourself, of possibly where it all went wrong. Sometimes you're not going to find the answers to that. Sometimes people just go with their human nature and don't fix things and cause an implosion or explosion in the relationship that can't be helped. I was married to a woman that said we had too many children, and that was for the reason for the breakup, and then had 3 more children to another bloke. You don't know what's happening inside people, and to a large extent, that's not your problem. If somebody's breaking down, they're not what they were when you first met them. They've turned into somebody that you really don't know, and they've got stuff going on that you wouldn't have a clue about because they're not communicating. The usual old texts and phone calls and nobody answers and this sort of thing. There's no communication. You got to go through all the processing and be accountable, be self-accountable, be accountable to somebody else, be responsible. And being responsible is making sure and accountable that your reasons weren't selfish, that you really had come to the point where there was no resolve and things weren't just adding up, or whatever the case was, whatever happened to you, you have to come to a place where you've examined yourself well enough for you to grow from that experience. So after the processing and the rumination, using the rumination in the most positive way that you can, hopefully you're not turning to medications and alcohol and drugs. If that is where you're at, maybe you need to get some really serious help with that as well. Sometimes these are the things that cause breakups, but everybody's different and everybody's got different values for things. And for me, I like to stay straight and really try and keep a handle on what's happening to me and how I'm treating others and stuff. You're going to look like a villain if you're the dumpy either way. So you just got to make sure that you were clear about what happened. You might send a letter of closure. Make sure that person's got no reason to suffer with wondering or anything. That's not fair. I mean, leaving people without an explanation or a reason for why this has happened isn't fair at all. And I don't recommend that at all. After you've done the processing and the self-accountability, then you're going to move towards a period where you're just going to sort of go through the shock, as it were, the trauma, which will lead you to the point of, and there's no time phase on this, to where you're going to bury it. So you actually are heading to the sort of the burial place, and then you're digging the hole, and then you're putting everything in the grave and you're covering it up. Not so that it won't be seen again, but so that you can resurrect. Maybe you should bury yourself somehow, psychologically or spiritually, allow yourself to die and give way to a new life. Jesus said, unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it will produce as much grain, speaking about his death and resurrection. Sometimes we need to mentally and emotionally and spiritually do that. When we come to that point where we're ready to grieve and accept the loss and the circumstances therewith, and then you bury it and you go through the grief. And that could take the rest of your life. You might carry that grief longer than you think. You might carry it shorter than you think. And at this point, you're starting to heal. You're starting to grieve. You're starting to heal. You're starting to accept facts. If you've made a terrible mistake and brought the breakup on yourself, then you've gone through it. See, once you take responsibility and accountability, you've got every right then to move forward and move on. And just accept that, we all make mistakes, and none of us have got it completely right, and things happen for a reason, and hopefully it's for better. And you'll find a way it's not as bad as we think. We move on for the better, and we learn, and hopefully we look after ourselves more, and we stay fit, and look after our minds and our bodies, and be an example for the people around us, and be accountable to the people around us that are close to us, and show them the way, I guess, as the adults and of our families, and move on. I don't think you should rush into anything with somebody else. That's not fair. Although some people do that, and that's their way of dealing with things, and each to their own. Depends on how your mind is and how you deal with things. But for me, I think you've got to come back to yourself Give some dignity to the relationship. Go through your grieving. Come out and into the resurrection life like a newborn baby, as it were, and crawl before you walk. And then just by way of the universe, things will begin to go from there. And by this point, things will be in order, and you should have good health and a clear mind to be able to move forward, not in a way that you, of any other reason except to be the best version of yourself. And hopefully a new version of yourself, one that's better and more mature and learnt more about life. And be prayerful and thankful. You know, sometimes our human nature is just not going to let us have what we want. Sometimes the people around us aren't going to let us have what we want. And if we haven't got the right boundaries and things in place, then it can be very harmful and complicated. And this is how things end up. Navigating a relationship takes lots of skill. It's not something where you just show up like how could I put it? Like whale watching, I guess, and you just show up. Or like a show at SeaWorld, it's time for the show. Now, there's a whole lot more to it than that. There's nurturing, there's caring. And I just hope what I've shared with this about breakups, that it helps someone somewhere, because it's really important. Life's hard enough without making it more complicated and difficult than what it already is. Try and stay away. Look, everybody's got different habits and things, but try and, if you can, find a way back to yourself and eat right. Get things in order, and we all know what the different things are that we might need to fix. Sometimes when you break up with somebody, that can be the biggest lesson that we've ever had. If we get the message behind it. If we don't get the message behind it, then we just do what we've already done. If that's not succeed, well, we choose not to succeed. But if we go against ourselves, and again, responsibility and accountability and the adjustments necessary after that to be a better version of ourselves for ourselves and the people around us and for our future, that's what really matters. So I hope this helps. God bless all of you. And, life's hard. There's a saying, I think we've all heard it, about everybody's got their own battles, but that's not an excuse to be weak. Sometimes we have to have force. We have to be forceful and conquer. That doesn't mean be harmful, but when you're a bricklayer like I am, you've got to have an element of force and wisdom and foresight, because it's a hard job, and you want to come home to peace. And you want to come home and succeed. You don't want to be wasting your time putting all your effort into making money for it just to be wasted. Reverend Dr. J.W. Morrison.